Hi, everyone. Welcome to Automation Hour. And let's get this into presentation mode. Awesome. All right, if you are joining us for the first time, okay, this isn't advancing. Hold on. Try this again. Okay, here we go. If you are joining us for the first time, all lines are muted. Please post any questions you have to our Trailblazer Community Salesforce Automation Hour. And shortly after the session, we will post the link to the recording as well as the deck. And you can find the recording and the link to the deck out on our YouTube channel, Salesforce Automation Hour. We'll also post on our website, automationhour.com, as well as our Trailblazer Community Salesforce Automation Hour. And our last session for the year is on the 18th, and Michael Barnes will be presenting. So if you haven't signed up, sign up for that to close out the year. And then we've scheduled out for next year, 2021, through June 11th. So if you haven't signed up for those, do recommend signing up. Even if you can't attend live, you'll have the link to the recording after the fact. So great repeat presenters coming back, some first-time presenters, so really excited for that lineup. And we can't bring this free webinar series to you without our sponsor, Concrete.io. So thank you for continuing to sponsor us. And here are your co-hosts, David, myself, and Rakesh. And oh, one thing to note is this is our 100th episodes, and we're happy to have a repeat presenter coming back, Michelle Hansen. She's presented multiple times, and we're excited for her to share her business use case and solution today. So with that, let me hand it over to Michelle.
Perfect. Now, which screen am I actually sharing?
We're seeing your presentation screen with the notes.
Well, that's not the right one then. Hang on a minute.
Now we're seeing just the presentation.
Perfect. I think that's where we want to be then.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, evening, morning, everybody, whatever time it happens to be where you are. I am thrilled to be back to present again. Today's topic is going to be building a custom pricing calculator. So essentially, this is what I call the Goldilocks approach to Sales and Revenue Cloud, which used to be CPQ. Because what do you do when Sales Cloud is too little and CPQ is way too big? You need to go find something that's just right, and sometimes that means you build it yourself. So, quick agenda, I'll give you some background on the company I work for so we can get an idea of, what the challenges were. I'll talk through the use case of what I built, I'll demo it, and then we'll leave some time for questions at the end. So with that, let's just jump right in. I work for NISC. We are a technology cooperative with offices around the country, and we offer utility and telephone companies software and other solutions to run their business. So when you get a bill every month for your electric service, it comes from your electric provider. The software they use to be able to maintain your account and to send you that bill is something that we provide. So here's where the challenge came in. As we have grown as a company, we've expanded the products that we offer, and we've gone beyond just selling software to also being able to sell the hardware that you need to run our software, and we provide services to implement or train on that software as well. So as we start to sell more things, it gets more and more interesting how you want to price things. And we started to move away from just a list times quantity pricing model. And as I got thinking about this, I decided to expand out all of the different ways you could price things based on, you know, how we do it and how other people in the industry do it. So this is more than just what NISC uses, but some of those pricing models are, is it a flat fee? Doesn't matter anything. It's just, this is the cost for it. Is it a tiered fee? And by tiered fee, is it maybe that the first 1,000 you buy costs you 5 cents, second 10,000 you buy are going to cost you 5 cents, and anything over 100,000 is going to cost you 2 cents. So then you actually have to figure out your quantity at every price point and add those up. Or do you price it in blocks? So for every set of 5 pencils, it's going to cost you this much, or for every 100 cups, it's going to cost you a certain price. Or do you do a bulk discount? So if you buy 1 through 10, it costs $5. If you buy 20 to 50, it costs you $4. If you buy 50 or more, it costs you $3. And so then it's a total quantity times a price point. And so these are all things that we've encountered as we go out places. If any of you have bought things from the Trailhead store, which there's an awesome plug for buying some cool Salesforce swag, sometimes they'll have things that reduce price as your quantity goes up. All sorts of different things like this. So how could I make sure that I could handle anything that they wanted to throw at me, not only now, but in the future, with one solution? So that's really kind of where I started. And obviously Sales Cloud didn't give me a lot to work with, and so I was a little bit stressed. We started using Microsoft Excel to do this. And so it was pretty cool. You know, you can build whatever formulas you want in there, and Excel does great things and it's awesome and wonderful. And so then we went and started trying to generate documents out of Excel. And how many of you guys have ever tried to make a pretty document in Excel? It is not the easiest or most fun thing in the world to do. It's external to Salesforce, which wasn't really good, because then it was, okay, we want you in Salesforce for all of this stuff, and now when you want to actually quote something, let's go get into Excel. And oh, by the way, we're saving all of this stuff on our network, so if you don't happen to be in the office, thank you, COVID. Hope you have a VPN. It also is very manual. If you get into a situation where you've got someone who maybe doesn't know much about Excel, they can accidentally fat finger a few things and then everything works wrong. Or if you have somebody that knows enough in Excel to be dangerous and they go in and start messing with things, you can even, you know, best intentions to lock down formulas and things. There's always things that are prone to error. So that was the solution that we had. I wasn't super excited about it. And we also, at one point, started to pull in Conga for document generation. And so Conga gave me the ability to pull all of this information out of Salesforce to make a pretty document, except I still couldn't do what I needed to calculate the pricing. So when we were looking at solutions, we're like, okay, we've got Sales Cloud, which is great, but it doesn't fit because you've got list price times the quantity, and that's all I can do when it basically comes to calculating my prices. So we started looking at CPQ, now Revenue Cloud, and it just had all this functionality that we really didn't need, and it's really expensive in case you've never looked at it. Think Salesforce license times like 1.5 or something. But it had things that we would never use, like customer specific pricing, or having to override prices based on multiple conditions. So you can actually have one product that's priced 4 different ways depending on, you know, geographic area, or if it's sold with something else, or what industry they're in, or something like that. And it was, you know, set up to be able to do bundles, and we don't really sell in bundles. It's not like when you go to Best Buy and you want to buy a laptop or a computer, and it's like, okay, if you buy a computer that's not a laptop, well, you need the, you know, the tower and the hard drive, and then you need a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse and maybe a printer we can add on there, and all the cables and all the fun peripheral stuff. So we want to bundle that and be able to sell it to you together. And again, like I said, super, super expensive. So it was way too big for our needs, and it wasn't cost effective. So instead, I found the box that fit us. And that's where I basically came up with a custom pricing calculator. The good thing is that you can build it out as simply or as complex as you need to be able to fit your use case. You can leverage your existing Salesforce functionality with Sales Cloud. There's no other thing needed. The skills that you have as an admin are going to be enough to get you through. I mean, granted, we always have a little more to learn on Sales Cloud. So if you're not comfortable with custom metadata or not as familiar with Flow, there's some work there, but you don't have to learn an entirely new managed package like CPQ. And really, it's a lot more cost effective because it's mostly an investment of time and effort on your part. There's not going to be the need for you to, buy more software or anything like that. Okay, so step one, we start looking at custom metadata. And so this is where I'm basically going to build in what everything should look like. So what are all the ways that we price things? If we are using flat fees, if we are doing it on bulk discounts based on how much you buy, if we've got tiered pricing, any of those things, you need to know that first. Next, you need to identify all of the pricing metrics. And these are generally what I call the levers that you can shift into different positions to impact the way a product gets priced. So is it different across regions or countries? Is it different for industries? Anything like that. Are there any dependencies? Sometimes if it's a buy one product, get another product half off or something like that. Is there anything like that that you need to take into account as a dependency that you need to be able to track and build into your, basically your calculator logic? Then after that, it's time to actually build your custom metadata object in all of the fields, which is pretty much as simple as building a custom object. So if you've ever built a custom field and a custom object in Salesforce, you are highly qualified to work with custom metadata, I promise. Okay, so step two, and this is where it becomes really important, and I've run into more problems than I care to count. You need to make sure that you're keeping your product data and your custom metadata object in sync. So once you've built the custom metadata object, you need to start building your records, and you'll need one for every product that you plan to sell. And the important part here is to make sure that you have a precise match between the name of your product record and the name of your custom metadata product record. And we'll get into why that is in a little bit, because we're going to give you a bonus on not just calculating the cost. All right, step three is we're building the flow. So we create a wizard that basically can take place of the product selection screens. So it will guide them through picking a product, supplying you with all of the information that you need to be able to calculate the price. You can also build in a way to show the math if that is applicable for you or you feel the need to do it. And then this is the bonus. Instead of just telling them this is what it costs, now go pick your product and put this in as your dollar amount, they've already done the heavy lifting. So why don't we just add it to the opportunity for them? And if they want to sell more than one product at a time, you can run them back through this flow again and have them fill it out for the next product. So with that, give me a second. We'll flip over to my sandbox org and we will actually go through a live demo here. Okay, so in my sandbox, we'll start with my custom metadata object. So I've got a custom metadata object I called product pricing. And so this looks pretty much like a classic object record page does. All of the standard fields up here that get created for you by Salesforce. And then below are all of the custom fields that I built. So things that I wanted to know, some of our pricing levers would be, do we ever discount what we charge to implement our software? We offer the ability for some things to be housed on a server or they can be hosted in a cloud, and that makes different things required. So what configuration is the hardware that this is going to run on? Someday we may have an industry that's different, so I grabbed that. We're a cooperative. We have different types of members, and we give really all of our members the same pricing. That's kind of the goal of our cooperative, but there may be something someday where member type comes in. So I wanted to build that in. Do we charge a minimum fee? So sometimes there's a minimum quantity that you have to buy or anything. So do we have a minimum fee for our software? Notes is always good. The pricing structure is how I determine which set of math I go down. The product name to make sure I have an exact match. Service type, and then for every tier, you can determine how many tiers you have. And so I actually built this to sustain up to 5 tiers. Basically, I want to know what the implementation fee is, so we can actually change that based on tier if we want. What are the bands of my tier actually going to be for minimum and maximum? Is there a base fee, and does that ever change? And then what is the actual fee for whatever's in that tier, no matter how we calculate it? So once I built all of these in, then I started building in the records for my actual products. So for example, let's just pick one here. We'll go into billing. So we have a billing product that we sell. And so this is one that I made up as a flat pricing structure. And I said, doesn't matter if you want this billing software, we're going to charge you $5,000. Doesn't matter your size, doesn't matter industry, location, nothing. It's always $5,000. So the way I did that is I basically just made sure I filled in every implementation fee tier with the same amount. And it's important that you have every field in here filled out that is a cost, even if that cost is zero. So I just make it a good habit to make sure that everything is filled out. So that way the calculations don't run into errors, because they absolutely hate blank cells. So for IP scanning, we offer cybersecurity services. So this is one where, depending on how many IP addresses you want to scan, we charge you a certain amount. So we chunk them up. So if it's chunks of 25, we're going to charge you a certain price, whether it's 1 or 24. So anywhere within that tier, it's just, that's what you get for that block. Per quantity per tier, basically this means if you buy a certain quantity, we're going to total it up. So if you want to buy 55,000 of this, then the first 10,000 will cost you 5 cents, the next 15,000 cost you 4 cents, the next 25,000 cost you 3 cents, and then the 5,000 above that costs 2 cents. And then finally, if it's just total quantity per tier, it pretty much is set up the same way. It's just for whatever your tier structure is, what is that cost? And then we'll control how we build that, or how we calculate that within our flow. So that's just a quick overview of how to kind of set up your products. Again, if there's other things that change your prices, you can build those in and make sure that you take those into account in your flow. Okay, so it's a fairly big flow. Let me see if I can actually get it all on screen here. Okay, so basically this is how I'm taking us through grabbing this information from the opportunity. So we'll zoom back in here to the front. The first thing I do when we launch this from an opportunity is I pull in all of the opportunity information and the associated account record. Then we're going to go to the product selection screen. And so the product selection screen is where I actually have pulled all of the levers in to see exactly what's going to impact the price. So right now I care about the hardware configuration and I care about which product they've selected. So for each of these, I've created some choices, and then I need to know the quantity that we're selling. So it's fairly simple for them to pick what they want. From there, we do a get records, and this is where it becomes vitally important that everything has the same name. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to ask it to find my custom metadata record that has the hardware configuration and equals the same product name. Now, for the way I did this, everything's already active, but you could also add an active flag in here so that if you have products that are inactive for certain times, or just as we go forward in time, you're only pulling active versions of this if you want to maintain older pricing records for audits or posterity or what have you. So every time we do a decision to make sure we can find a product. I want to make sure I handle errors gracefully. So if for some reason I can't find a product, it sends an email to me as the admin, and then also gives a nicer error message to my user on a screen that basically says, we couldn't find a product based on what you picked. So, go make sure that you have all the right selections. And if you do, then please submit a AAA. That's our internal ticketing system called Ask an Admin. And then one of the admins can help out figuring out what went wrong. Assuming we did find a product though, we are going to go in and we're going to look and determine what the pricing structure was. So I just have a decision outcome based on all of that, and I'm looking that up based on the custom metadata record where I'm storing that information. So for me, I really prefer to make sure that I'm giving all of the information to my users. So I actually break this out step by step so I can show them all of the math that goes into getting that recurring fee. So it's pretty simple if it's flat. It's just the flat implementation fee from tier 1, and it's the flat recurring fee from tier 1 if there happens to be any. Again, since there's a quantity, it doesn't hurt to put those in all of them. So then no matter what quantity is, as long as it hits in that tier, that's what it's going to pull. If we're doing total quantity tier, so if I buy more than 5,000, they all cost me 2 cents. The first thing I do is set the implementation fee, again, looking up that tier. Then I'll check and see if there is a base fee. And then I'll set the total monthly recurring fee. And essentially all that is comparing the quantity to my tiers. And when I find that, getting the tier fee that applies. So price per block's pretty much the same way. Figure out which block it falls into, and the cost that's associated with that tier is what we do the math on, because quantity just needs to fall into the block. Then the per quantity per tier is by far the most complicated. So basically what I do with that one is once I've set the implementation fee, I check and see if we have a base fee. Then I will set the unit value for each tier. So if I have tiers of 1 through 10, 10 through 25, 25 to 50, and 50 to 100,000, then I need to actually break my 55,000 out into 10,000, 15,000, 25,000, and 5,000. Once I've done that, I can calculate what the cost is at each tier using the individual tier prices. And then I sum them up to be able to get the total monthly recurring fee. Now, there's a couple places where we do use minimums. So again, if we're offering cybersecurity training, for example, we have a minimum that we want to charge because it's not really cost effective for us to provide training to one person, let's say. So we have a minimum, let's say, of 20. So I can also come in here and do a decision where I take a look at my custom metadata record to see if there is a minimum quantity. And if there is, determine whether or not the quantity I just calculated should be used, or if I need to throw that out and then set it to be the minimum fee. So now that I've done all of my pricing, I set the variables for my product names. And so this basically is just a couple of formulas and variables to pull whatever the choice is, and we break it out into one-time and recurring. So I want to make sure that I can have both of those products here, because generally for software, you have the implementation fee and there's a monthly license fee that goes with it. So after that, I've got a screen where I actually will provide them all of the information that I use to get to our pricing. So up here is what we're going to put on the opportunity. So I have my implementation fee and then my monthly recurring license fee. Then depending on how we calculated it, I'm using conditional visibility down here to determine if these components should show, for me to be able to show either how many units were billed at what price for each tier, or how many total units were billed at what tier and what that price is. Especially if there's a minimum fee, I give them the calculations in the minimum fee so that they can understand why the recurring price is what it is. And then down here, I threw a couple of fun little emojis in here that you can do just to add some interest and draw the eye. But I have a checkbox here to ask my users, do you want to actually add these products to whatever opportunity they were working on? And I pull that in just to make sure that they don't assign it to the wrong opportunity. Then also a note, if all you wanted to know was what it cost if I wanted to sell somebody, maybe you're on the phone with a customer and they're like, hey, if I'm interested in buying cybersecurity training for 50 people, about how much is that going to cost me? Well, I can run through this real quick from any opportunity, throw in all of my parameters and spit out a price that's like, oh, it's going to be about X number of dollars. Do you want me to put you together a formal quote? So I don't have to go through that whole formal process just to be able to get them an estimate. So if they are then interested in adding it to the opportunity, we'll follow this part of the flow down here. And if it's no, we do nothing. If it's yes, then I start looking at the price book. So if we have a price book on it already, then we'll continue. If we don't, we go find a price book ID and we assign it, just in case they haven't done that, because obviously if you try and add products to an opportunity without a price book, you're going to get errors. Can't tell you how many times that bit me in the behind. And so once I've done that, I actually do 2 get records because we're using 2 different products, one for the one time and one for the recurring. And so this is where I've set the product one time to actually be the name of the product along with the one time appended at the back, because that is our pricing or our product naming structure. And so then, assuming I found it, then I go and I find the price book entry for that product. And I had to do that one step at a time, unfortunately. So it's costing me a little bit in calls to the database, but we're still doing pretty decent for being able to do this, because we don't generally sell thousands or even, you know, tens of products at a time. Usually it's probably 5 or less. So once we do this for the one time, I add that to a collection so I can at least create all of my products in one fell swoop. Then we go through and do the same thing for the recurring record, add that to the collection. And then once I have that all ready to go, I ask them, are they done or do they want to add another product? And if they say no, then we do the opportunity to verify that they said no, or the decision, sorry, and then we actually create those records. And when all of the records have been created and added to the opportunity, we get a success screen just so that they know what they expected to happen has been done. In the event that they say yes, they want to add another product, this actually will take them all the way back up to the first product selection screen again. So with that, let's jump over here and we'll take a little gander. So I've got just an automation hour software opportunity for a generic utility that I put in here. You can see I don't have any products. And so instead of coming in here to select my products where I'd have to be able to do list price times quantity or do the math outside, you can probably take this button off. And so I built a button to launch my flow that just says calculate pricing. So we'll give this just a second to pull up. So basically it's, you know, please select the product you want to calculate pricing for. It's got to be done individually, but you can run through it multiple times. So let's say I want to do an on-site hardware configuration, and I'm going to go ahead and grab our billing product that's a flat fee. So I just need one of those. So it's going to run through and it's going to show me that I've got $5,000 as my implementation with no recurring. Do I want to add that? Yep, let's go ahead. And then do I want to do it again? Sure. So let's actually go through all 4 of the products that we grabbed before. So after billing, we'll do IP scanning, broadband data, and business intelligence. Okay. So we need broadband data. For this, basically broadband data is if you've ever had your internet company say you get so much data, and then after your data that's included, we're gonna start charging you overages, kind of like you do for mobile data as well. And so let's say maybe that we do this based on the number of customers they have. And let's throw out a number, let's go 67,000 and some customers. So because we're pricing this on that per quantity per tier, I actually went through and figured out we've got a minimum fee, but by totaling up the price per every tier, it's higher than the minimum. So this is the total of my recurring. If I actually went down here and did the math, it would show up. So I'll go say, yeah, go ahead, add that to the opportunity. Let's add a couple more. So on site, we're going to do some IP scanning, and they have 55 IP addresses. And then the last one we'll do is we'll add some business intelligence software. And so business intelligence software, they're going to run from the cloud. And let's say that we actually build this on a how many reports are you going to run per year? So let's say they think 150,000 a year is probably about right. So then it goes through and it just shows us, do we have a minimum fee? We do. Based on the total, it's using tier 3. The price for that is 2 cents per. So 150,000 times 2 cents is 3,000. So I'll go ahead and say, yes, please add that. No, I'm done adding products. So it'll take just a few minutes now because it's actually going to go out there and create all of my products for me. And now that I'm done with this, we'll give it a second to refresh. And then all of the products that I had. So billing, there was only a one-time fee, so only a one-time product. got added. I didn't add the $0 recurring. For everything else, I've got the one times and recurrings. And we actually look at a year's worth of revenue, so you'll notice that the totals don't match, but it's basically the pricing that we came up with times 12. So 3,000 for business intelligence works out to 36,000 a year. Okay. So I know that was kind of a lot, and I know there's a lot of concepts that we introduced, so I wanted to make sure I left plenty of time for questions, and I might have left a little too much time for questions. But with that, I think we can open it up and see if there's anything someone wants to take a look at more in depth, or if there's any questions on how we built any of this.
Okay, as a reminder, you can post your questions out on the Trailblazer community or within this GoToWebinar. So we'll just give folks a couple of minutes to enter their questions. Okay, we have a question from Allie. Have you considered packaging this with placeholder calculations?
Not sure I know what you mean by placeholder calculations, Allie. So if you want to elaborate on that, my guess is I probably did not know.
Okay, so we'll wait for Allie to clarify. And Gina asks, how many price books do you have?
Right now we have technically 3. One is pretty specific use case, so really there's only 2. And that would be another lever where you could probably add it on there. One of those is future. So I guess technically right now we only have one we're using this with. So that would be another lever that you could add in to basically say, which price book do you need to price this out of? Or if you can determine that based on any of your opportunity characteristics, you can use that in your decision. Is the right opportunity on this, or is the right price book on this opportunity, as opposed to, is there a price book on the opportunity at all?
All right. Elias asks, did you build the flow one segment at a time to ensure things were working as planned and keep adding, oops, hold on, just lost my place, and keep adding the rest of the complexity subsequently?
Oh gosh, yes. When I start doing something this crazy, I basically go, okay, use case number 1, let's work through that. And then I'll go back and go use case number 2. So I kind of started with, technically the hardest one first, I guess. For what we were dealing with at the time, I'm like, all right, what's the worst thing for us to have to price? Let me see if I can make it work for that. Because if I can solve the hard one, I can probably solve the easy one. But yeah, one at a time. I absolutely tested every step of the way, and I'm kind of a fan of development by breakage. So build something, test it. Oh gosh, that didn't work. Why not? Let's fix it. Okay, good. Next thing.
Okay, so Allie came back. Basically, this is super great and useful. It would be cool to see this available as a package made available to other orgs, but just with like placeholder flow variables, since obviously every org's products will be different.
I think Allie and I need to talk offline about how we turn it into a package, is what I think.
Get this out on the App Exchange.
That would be cool. That would be my first App Exchange thingamajiggy.
All right, Christopher asks, any reason you chose to do this with opportunity products instead of using quotes and quote lines?
Yes, because we don't use quotes or quote lines and never have. So I'm absolutely certain you could probably do the same thing with those. If you use the standard quote and quote line objects in Sales Cloud, but for whatever reason, when we set up Sales Cloud, they said opportunity products is good. We don't need quotes. And so kind of work with what you got, I guess.
Mm-hmm. All right. Next question is from Murphy. This looks great. How do you handle pricing updates? I have a group that updates pricing for all products each month. They have over 100 products.
Oh Lord. Okay, so that's definitely a use case I did not have to work with. So Jen, I'm gonna phone a friend on this one. Can you grant access to users to custom metadata objects?
I do not believe so. To go in, to set up, to modify. I don't believe so.
Okay, so my plan that I haven't put in place yet is, or would be, to basically use a permission set to give a power user access to my custom metadata so they would be able to do the product updates themselves. If that doesn't work, probably what I would do is basically do a spreadsheet so you could data load product updates. And then I think I saw somebody ask why I went with custom metadata as opposed to an S object for this. And really it's because we do a lot of customization and I sort of didn't want to take up another object in my org for this because I can use custom metadata for it and it's all configuration data. It's not user data. So it just, in my head, it made more sense to do custom metadata than an S object, but that might actually take care of Murphy's problem too, because if you built this into a regular object as opposed to custom metadata, you could use CRED permissions to make sure whoever needs to update those products could do so.
Great. All right, next question is from Dominic. So amazing. Have you ever had users ask for an override on the minimum fee? If so, would you just build an extra screen input and work that back into your pricing?
Well, technically no, because that's not how we handle discounts. So the way we handle discounts is we actually have a product for a discount that you would just add in to reduce the overall cost by whatever. The beauty of this though, technically, is that I haven't locked down anything in terms of opportunity product pricing. So while this is my standard pricing available, if we want to discount something, I can still come in here and say 5,000 might be, you know, standard, but we're going to give you a discount and it's only 2,500 for you. Merry Christmas. So if we know we want to do something like that, they can still come in and just overwrite it this way, but this still takes out the requirement for them to figure out what that initial price would actually be. So
Great.
that's definitely something you could probably work in if you wanted to be able to lock down the ability for them to come in here and modify it. Essentially, this was more of a time savings than a security focused effort. So I'm absolutely certain I left plenty of backdoor holes for my users to go in and create chaos where they wish.
Okay. Elias asks, how long did it take you to build the flow and then put it into production?
Oh gosh, this one probably took me a week or two. And granted, that's not 8 hours a day, nothing else in my life but that. But probably a fair amount of my focus. So I'd probably say it was maybe a 40 to 60 hour project. I'll let you all in on a little secret. You should always check what's in your sandboxes before you delete them. Because I rebuilt this out with multiple custom metadata types to be able to break out the pricing structure and have all of them with less fields based on pricing structure, so you didn't have a bunch of nonsense on the page layouts, and totally obliterated that sandbox a few months back and have not rebuilt it that way again. Because fortunately, we are moving to CPQ, so this is going to become moot for us in a few months anyway, but this has served us pretty well in the interim before we got to a point where CPQ finally did become a reasonable use case for us. So.
All right, next question from William. Any thought on using metadata lookup to other metadata objects to simplify the tiered pricing, e.g. products with related pricing tiers that are looped through for determining costs?
Yep, built it, deleted it, kicking myself. So hard.
Big oopsie.
It's the same sandbox that had my last automation hour presentation on custom notifications, and I obliterated that too. So I've decided everything I build is going to be an automation hour presentation, so I can go back and watch the recording to rebuild it after I do stupid things.
All right, next question from Katai. How are you handling attributes on your products?
So basically, we don't have a lot of attributes, or what I think you mean by attributes. For us, it's like, is this going to be hosted on site or in the cloud? So those are all things that I have built into my screen to say, these are the attributes I need you to tell me about, so that I can find the appropriate one. And then if I have different pricing for one attribute versus another, then I have multiple custom metadata object records with that as an attribute, and I have to find the right metadata record that matches all of those attributes. So for example, if we jump back in here and take a look at billing, it doesn't matter to me if you're doing it on site or the cloud, it's a flat fee. But if I wanted to, I could come in here and say, I actually need one for on site, and that's a flat 5,000. And then I can actually clone this and say, we're going to have another one. And if it's on the cloud, we're actually going to knock that down and only be 3,000. So, and the beauty of using, oh yeah, I know, sorry. So the beauty of using custom metadata, or my idea with using custom metadata instead of trying to build this all into the flow, is because as prices change, all I have to do is come in here and update essentially what is fields on a record, as opposed to having to build another version of my flow and then deactivate the old one. So, and again, I think you could probably make the argument, depending on your security needs, whether custom metadata or an S object makes the most sense.
Okay, next question is from Daryl. What is the advantage of using custom metadata versus adding extra fields to the product to cater to pricing variations?
Currently, there might not be, and it might be the same argument as S object versus custom metadata. There's other places in Salesforce where you can access custom metadata as basically a system field without requiring you to do a call to the database with a get records. And I totally started building it under that assumption. And when I found out I was wrong, I was like, dang it, which is why I've got quite so many get records in here as I do. And again, it's probably not the most elegant, or if you're quoting, 20, 30 products in here, there's enough get records that you're going to have to watch your DML limits. But for our use case, when we probably don't sell more than 4 or 5 things at a time, we can get away with it. So that's definitely something to consider if you're going to make this scalable and you sell lots of products. But yeah, that's really why I did it, is because custom metadata was supposed to get me out of having to do get records.
Okay, next question from Gina. Are the reps able to go back to opportunity products and change discounting? Wondering how, if approvals would work.
Well, we don't do approvals officially today, so that's not something that I thought about with it. And like I said, this was more efficiency than security. So my users are basically able to backdoor the heck out of this and change anything they want pricing wise. We could probably come up with a way to expand it out to handle those discounts. And then we'd have to figure out probably how to do some email alerts or some other sort of notifications for approval. And I think you'd either have to figure out how to pause the flow until that approval came back, or add them to the opportunity, but not move the opportunity forward until those approvals came in. Again, that was something that wasn't really part of my use case, so I can safely say I didn't think about that, Gina. I'm sorry.
All right, next one from Russell. Thanks, Michelle. Super cool and powerful. Could you have a flow that updates custom metadata?
Pretty sure you can, right, Jen?
I cannot answer either way. I've not had a use case where I needed to.
Hey, Russ, I think you need to present an automation hour with that.
And he has another question. Any other changes on your roadmap for this in your dream world?
Number one, go back in time and don't delete the sandbox. Number two, I think what I'd really like to see is a way to be able to handle discounting or other special scenarios beyond, hey, I need to calculate this price and it's more complicated than list price times quantity. Being able to do things like, if I need to give it a discount, is there some sort of discount that's allowable that the users are able to offer, or do we have to get approval for all of them type thing? But it's about still finding that nice Goldilocks spot where this makes more sense than actually buying CPQ and leveraging the functionality that they've built in with all of their nifty bells and whistles. Because I gotta say, having started to implement it, it's really cool. So really, it's the tipping point between when CPQ makes sense because of all the things that you can do with discounting and approvals, and when you really just need something that's smaller than all that.
All right, next question from Teresa. How do the price book entries look like if the price comes from CMDT? Did I understand that right?
Yep. So basically, because ours are so custom, my price book entries for every product I own pretty much says $0. Because we don't know what the price is and there's no way to calculate it inside. So it was always calculated in Excel, grab the price, override the list price with whatever Excel spat out at you. And so now essentially we're doing the same thing. The price book entry is still set at 0 and I'm setting the list price when I add the product to whatever my calculator in Salesforce told me, as opposed to whatever Excel told me. So, and because of that, if you keep it at 0 in your price book, then it's pretty obvious that there's got to be some other way of calculating pricing, because generally you don't give things away for free.
Okay, Daryl says, I don't believe you could update custom metadata from an external file, e.g. data loader. So this could make bulk updates difficult. There is a CMDT loader tool though. I don't know if Daryl, you've used that or not. But I know that you can't use regular data loader to update custom metadata types, since it's metadata and not data.
Gotcha. So yeah, I don't know if you might be able to do that through any of the other tools. But there is definitely an idea out there for it, and there's a GitHub custom metadata loader that you can use, like Jen just referenced. So maybe I can grab that link and throw that in the chat for anybody who might be interested.
Gina comments, Michelle needs a backup, LOL.
I won't disagree at the moment.
Maybe own backup. All right.
Yeah, we actually bought own backup after I deleted that sandbox. So thanks, Gina. You have a couple months to.
All right. Next question is from Melissa. Brilliant work in memorizing presentation. How do you maintain this since you've built your own?
Well, to be honest, it's close to being deprecated. My guess is this won't be around probably in the next year after we get everybody rolled over to CPQ. But essentially, fortunately, we don't have a lot of changes to pricing and we don't add more products terribly often. So it hasn't been terribly difficult to do that. So really, it's just one of those admin tasks that, oh, hey, we're making a change to this product. Can you add this and change that? And yep, we can sure add that to our workload and get it done for you by, whatever date you need it. And again, it's nice that we don't have a huge product catalog. We maybe have a couple hundred products as opposed to thousands. So definitely kind of a year mileage may vary, but it's at least a good basis to get started thinking on how we might be able to do something like this, and how would you make it scalable for much larger organizations.
All right, so last calls for any questions. Let me refresh the Trailblazer community, since if anyone posted out there. It could be related to Michelle's presentation or any general process automation question as well.
But if we're going to play Stump the Expert, it's going to be really, really easy because I'm not the expert and easily stumped. I am short.
Or turn this into AMA. Ask me anything.
Let's do AMS. You can ask me something. It's probably about the best I can offer today.
All right, let's see. Anybody else?
So, but yeah, I absolutely welcome any suggestions, any ideas, anything like that. If I somehow decide that I'm insane enough to try and turn this into an app exchange package, yeah, there's definitely some work to be done before I would release this out in the wild and say, I'm confident that you can use this for your org. But it's kind of cool to think that maybe I could do that. So Ryan, no, I'm sorry, I don't have this code available anywhere in GitHub because this admin don't know how to do that yet. You want to reach out and give me a crash course, I'll absolutely take you up on that. So, but no, I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I can make the slide deck available. I know it doesn't have a whole lot of the actual demo in it, but I'd be happy to talk to anybody one-on-one as well that might have questions or want to. So if you hit me up in LinkedIn, please let me know how I quote unquote met you. Because yeah, I like to at least remember where I met someone before I accept their LinkedIn invitation.
All right, so before we wrap it up with Spring 21 coming, if you could have your automation wish list item, what would it be?
My automation wish list item. If I could think of a process that I would want to automate and Salesforce would just suck it out of my brain and make it work.
Wow, that'd be awesome.
Barring Salesforce mind readership, which has all other sorts of frightening implications, I would say probably full parity for everything in Flow with the ability to just touch absolutely everything in it at the same time. I mean, you run into problems with mixed DML between trying to deal with like metadata and data. So being able to do some of those things, like if I want to update a pick list and while I'm at it, I want to create a record based on that pick list because I really want it to be more of a lookup. Right now, you've got to do some fancy footwork to make that work, and it would be way easier to just throw that into a single flow.
Mm-hmm.
So either that or just a direct line to the Flow team. And every time I come up with, I want to be able to do this, then magically it's there in the next release.
Yes, Michelle.
I don't ask for much. It's just Christmas.
Right. Can't every day be Christmas? Flow Christmas? All right. So with that, we're going to wrap up our 100th episode. So thanks, Michelle, for coming back and presenting. I know we have you on already for next year, so we're looking forward to that. And as I mentioned, we will be posting a link to the recording as well as the deck after the fact on Automation Hour on our Trailblaze Community Salesforce Automation Hour, and communicating that out on Twitter as well. So thanks everyone for joining, and we'll see you next time on December 18th for our last episode of the year. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody. It was great to be here.
Bye.